Can anybody hear me?
I can.
I can.
Okay.
I can.
The screen seems odd today. Is Terry here?
I'm here.
I can't see you. I knew your name was there, but I didn't know if you were there. So it's just 8 of us?
So far.
Yeah. I don't know why my picture, the only way I can get my face in the picture is if I turn my computer sideways. Weird. Are we ready to go? Okay, I'll call this meeting of the South Thompson Select Board to order, February 22nd at 6 p.m. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Can everybody hear me okay? All right. The only one I have is I'd like to revisit our meeting schedule to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, any public comment for items not on the agenda? Jeff and Walter are muted, I think.
We are.
Okay,
Correct.
It's by design.
oh, and Jeff, you're still muted.
Well, I pressed the space bar and you can hear me now, right?
Yeah. Okay, so hearing none, review and approval of prior meeting minutes of February 8th.
I move we approve the minutes of February 8th.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Jeff?
Jeff, I.
Walter?
Aye.
John? Aye. Okay, old business. Do we have any update regarding the temporary relocation of the library to the Guilford Butler School?
I have something. The insurance company would like the code enforcement officer to go down and make sure that the repairs that were supposed to be made were done, and then issue just a note saying that it's ready to occupy.
And these are the repairs that were requested by the fire marshal's office? Is that what you're talking?
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
And I spoke to Dan today when he was in, and he was gonna catch Penny at the library at Guilford Butler next time he went by. Did he get there today, Penny?
He did not. Now the repairs, meaning the lock on the basement door,
No, what was it? Whatever was in the fire marshal's, the bathroom and
that wasn't fire marshal's application. I mean, it wasn't a requirement by the state fire marshal's office. That was what we were going to do.
whatever the fire marshal permit told you to do, that's what the insurance company would like the code enforcement officer to sign off that you did.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that should be easy because I don't think he told us to do anything.
Well, we have to have a lock on the basement door.
Okay, do we have the local permit?
He was supposed to be working on it today, but he didn't say anything when he left, and I had gone to the post office when he left. So I don't know if he finished it. If he did, he didn't put it on my desk. I got the impression he was gonna take it to Penny when he went down to make sure that whatever was supposed to be done was done.
Okay, well, can Penny and or you follow up on that, or?
Yep.
Okay, anything on your end, Penny?
We're getting very close, and I'd like to start moving as soon as we have the CEO's permit and insurance.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any update regarding broadband expansion plans? I kind of asked Terry to change this agenda item because it seems as though we got multiple things flowing here. We have the Axiom study and report and the Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, and now the Consolidated's work. So I asked her to sort of broaden the agenda so the umbrella would really fall over any of those items and or others, I guess. Do we have any updates? Does anybody have any updated information? I haven't seen anything or heard anything, but I don't know if others have.
Neither have I. There's been no coalition gathering since December. And I haven't received any notification about an MIDC meeting. If you're driving around Rockland, however, those guys are cabling, fibering like no tomorrow. They were almost all the way down to Owl's Head on 73 today, and Union Street's are done. So they're ahead of schedule.
And those guys being consolidated. Yeah. Anybody else heard anything? Not that if you haven't, that's fine, but I have one question, and being a technical, not technical at all, I was thinking about 131. Is it worth asking the question if we somehow could participate through some sort of grant or kicking some of our AARP money that they could extend the cable out Westbrook Street and on their existing cable to service that street, they being consolidated? Jeff?
Yeah, I think they pretty well covered that. To get down that way, they have to come out of Thomaston. They don't have a hub that will work down 131. And they are intending to do Thomaston in the fairly near future. I think it's just a matter of time. And I'll tell you the truth, I was shocked that they are moving as fast as they are in the rest of the town. I anticipated it to be next year for everything. So I'm not at all worried or concerned about 131. I think we're going to end up getting it in the time that I thought the rest of the town would get it. Just everybody other than 131 is going to get it earlier than I expected.
Okay, I just thought it might be a question worth following up with a little bit.
Yeah, well, they can't, because of what Jeff pointed out, the exchange for those 131 is in Thomaston. If they connected to Westbrook, which is part of the Rockland exchange, you can't. There's no receptor at the other end. They'd have to move all those customers that are serviced by that exchange over to the Rockland exchange, and I think that would be cost prohibitive to them.
Okay.
I think what we'll find, I think the hurry up in Thomaston, I think, will come if clearly Consolidated's ambition here is to fiber all their existing customers in South Thomaston, but more importantly, they want to take a bit of market share away from Spectrum, and depending upon how much they do of that, that will motivate them to do Thomaston, which is bigger than South Thomaston for sure. So that's kind of a wait and see for them. But I know that it's on. They said it's in their plan anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Just a thought. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll move on to discussion of planned maintenance agreement with
Sorry,
PD.
John,
Yes. I'm sorry. Who was it?
Sandra.
Sandra. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something there. As
Okay,
someone
go ahead.
who moved from Thomaston to South Thomaston, we found to our shock and dismay that we had to change our phone number because we were moving to the Rockland server. So if you tried to do that, you might make a whole lot of people extremely unhappy. The price of getting the service a little bit sooner might be changing your phone number, which is a royal pain.
Yeah, I wasn't talking. I got the impression they were just wrapping the fiber around existing cables, and I was talking of if they could just do that around the existing cables and run the hub out of Rockland. But it sounds like it's not even worth pursuing. So, okay. Discussion on transfer station increase in assessment and fiscal year. Walter, any update on this?
Two things. I just appeared before the Owl's Head Select Board, interestingly enough, on this very subject. So we are meeting tomorrow with the engineering firm, the construction firm, and one of the vendors and the board, and to discuss options on what we can do to bring that renovation plan within budget. So stay tuned for that. On Thursday, we're meeting to discuss the fiscal year change. We have sent 2 warrant articles, 2 amendments to the interlocal agreement to our attorney for review. And I assume that he's going to rubber stamp those, and then we'll send them out. We will go through the steps that we have to go through on the fiscal year change on Thursday night. So stay tuned for a report out on that when after that meeting.
Okay, but what about this current 6-month assessment? Do we need, are we still, do we need to make a transfer from surplus to cover that? Do we still want to hold off?
Hold off on that. What I'm going to propose tomorrow or Thursday is we drop the $50,000 out of our budget, our current year's budget, for contingency. And that would come out, that would reduce the assessment, everybody's share of that 50,000. And then as far as, I haven't looked at the impact of that yet. So, and then our cash flow needs will determine whether we're entirely flat for the first 6 months of the year, flat with last year. So, more pencil sharpening on my part.
Okay, so what are we paying currently, Terry? Are we paying the new rate? I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yes, we're paying the new rate.
And that's what generates the $13,000 shortfall.
Right.
Terry, was that 13 for on the year? Oh, 13 on our South Thomaston fiscal year.
It was, yes,
Okay.
On South Thomaston's fiscal year.
right.
So since January, so I don't know, we paid January, I assume February, I don't know about March, so we've already paid 3 months on the higher rate.
We haven't paid March's payment yet.
All right, okay, well, 2, so,
Yep.
okay, well, let's hold, we can hold again and hopefully we won't overpay them if they reduce it. Well, that was kind of where I was going with it. Okay, discussion on plain, so let's keep this on the agenda then, particularly the fiscal year. Actually, probably both items, the transfer station, capital project upgrade, fiscal year change and the assessment, which I guess is 3 items, but. Okay, discussion of planned maintenance agreement with PDQ. Terry gave us some budget info, and looks like we're in pretty good shape there. I personally would support moving ahead and engaging this, approving this agreement and get a better sense on what we're looking at for any problems for next year if we need to budget any items. But Walter, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. Can I ask Brian a question?
Sure.
Yeah, you met with PDQ. Did they give you any numbers?
Yeah, they, if I remember correctly, they said the budget roughly $2,000. The springs on 3 out of the 4 doors I think are originals, or their lifespan's about done. And they said that could be a precaution just to have built into the budget. Other than that, he said we look pretty good considering, you know, where we've been and what we've done in the meantime without having this plan in place. So.
Okay, and Brian, has that information been transmitted to Terry?
Yep, the same day they came down, I gave it to her.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
I assumed that was the case. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so is there, Walter, your thoughts? You were kind of in favor of holding off until next year, or?
I still am. And the reason is that whatever set of problems there are here have been going on for longer than I've lived in town. So why all of a sudden is there a hurry to do this?
Okay. Jeff, any?
Yeah, the only reason I'd say do it sooner rather than later is that if those springs fail, we're going to end up getting their normal rate for repair. If we're under contract with them, we'll end up getting in most cases a lower rate that's contracted.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'd move that we authorize Terry and the chief to enter into a maintenance agreement with PDQ for the doors.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Yeah, I'm even going to vote for it based on what Jeff just said, but
Okay.
I just want it on the record that I'm always skeptical of these all of a sudden emergencies for things that have not been addressed for years and years and years. But I'm also passionate about maintenance.
Yeah.
I just had them come to my house, by the way, because I haven't had my door opener looked at for 14 years. And the guy said, it shows.
Okay.
So Brian triggered me to do that.
All those in favor, Jeff?
Jeff, aye.
Walter?
Aye.
John? Aye. Okay, discussion regarding purchase of 2 new fire trucks. I did send out a spreadsheet, a line, if you will. I hope everybody got it. Because now I can't find it, but
Can you share it, Terry? You're muted.
Okay, I got it.
I don't have it on the Zoom computer.
Can John share it?
I,
That'll be a challenge, huh?
yeah, that, we might be here at 10 o'clock. Well, basically what I did is I just ran down where we are now. First item was simply where our reserve balance is at, which includes the payment from the ambulance load back on 12/20. I included the last fire truck reserve contribution of 52.9 happened back on 6/21 when we approved that. It didn't actually happen then, but that's when the town meeting voted on it. And then on 12/21, we made the second payment on the ambulance loan repayment. I put in June to July, the grant award announcement, although Brian tells me that's probably the best timeline. It may be later, or likely will be later. Then I put in an assumed amount of $60,835 in an additional June 22 town meeting reserve contribution based on Brian's budget request. That's where that number comes from. That's not necessarily a done deal by any means. Then I assumed that town meeting would approve a bond approval in June 22, and that obviously is also not a done deal. And it's just a planning assumption for this timeline. And then Brian tells me that if town meeting did approve it, he would be ready to go with fire truck specs, but basically the next day, or I put 7/1, but and as I understand it, Brian, I didn't misunderstand you on that, correct?
No, you're not. Our plan is to be ready by the end to go soon as if it's approved at town meeting.
Yeah. And then I assumed Brian's requesting that we don't bid this, that we do similar to what I guess was done with the ambulance last time. And if that's the case, the order would be placed. I just picked kind of 7/22 date out of the year. Could be a few days earlier or later. I think if we do decide to bid it, that will obviously set that process back a month or so, which is not the end of the world time-wise, but and then I run down through an issue of bond at some point in the fall. I'm assuming if we went with Maine Bond Bank, it would be their fall issue, but that's not necessarily has to be done either. And then I assume another contribution to the reserve at a 6/23 town meeting. Trucks delivered, Brian tells me, hopefully, and this is very loose, September of 23. And then obviously we pay them, and that's sort of the timeline I've laid out here. It's obviously very fluid and very contingency laden on certain approvals. But I think at least gets us a sense of, I hope it gets us a sense of the timeline that we're looking at, or potentially are looking at. Comments, questions, Jeff?
Yeah, mine are just in the numbers. The last column, I understand everything up till the time it goes to 400,954. I don't know where that next number came from, the 449,046. And then the one below that, if the 449,046 is correct, it should increase by 11,000 rather than decrease. So I'm confused on those two numbers.
Well, my goal here was to get at what the bond amount would have to be, and I'll go back and check it. But the 85,000 is the 850,000 is the assumed payment, and if you subtract the 400,000 from that, that should leave us the 449 that we need to bond. But then that would even be lessened by, because that fourth payment, some of that goes back to the fire reserve and some of it goes to the reval reserve. I'll double check the numbers, but I believe the 437,966 is roughly what the bond amount would have to be, unless I screwed something up in the spreadsheet here.
Okay, I didn't realize that transition. So
Yeah.
up to the 400,000, that's how much is in our reserves. And the next one is how much we'd have to actually bond
Right.
to get there. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Now that's, that doesn't include interest and, so it's just a order of magnitude numbers. I mean, and according to Brian, the 850 may not be in play the way things are increasing. So anyways, I don't know if we need to have a lot of discussion about this tonight. I just wanted to kind of review it and get people's reaction and see if I was missing something major here. I think we'll have discussion when we talk about budgets with the select board and the budget committee. But I think this at least gets us, kind of gets our arms around what we're looking at from a time frame perspective, or at least I hope it does. That's the goal. The goal is not really to lay out exact numbers. It's kind of to lay out the key dates, for lack of a better word. Questions, comments?
I have two. One is, has there been any movement at all on the cross-departmental, Chris Farley, is that his name? Camden, Amy task force with regards to fire service, consolidation, centralization, regionalization. And the second one is, I think that we should also investigate one or two banks. When we did the transfer station loan, First National beat the main bond bank. Now rates have changed, and that current main bond bank calculator that I sent around a while ago looks very, very good, especially in the short years. So that may not be a worthwhile exercise, but I think that we should do it anyway.
Yeah, on the second point, I agree completely. I just assumed, again, for planning purposes, it would be sometime in the fall, and I'm certainly not locked into the bond bank. Although I will say that the longer the loan, my experience has been over the years that they tend to be better once the loan goes out any length of time. But certainly we can, when the time comes, that's an easy exercise. The first question, I think I'll have to refer to Brian.
Walter, to answer your question, nothing has changed. I'm trying to discuss it as much as I can. I am receiving a lot of resistance on the topic. We did have our chief's annual meeting last month. It was not discussed at the chief's meeting. We were supposed to have, we have what's called an enhanced mutual aid chiefs meeting, which is just a small handful of chiefs that gather to deal with those type of topics and strategy and tactics inside the county. That was supposed to happen last week, but there was conflicts of location. I believe we're meeting next month, and it is on the topic to be discussed with the smaller group. You just have to remember the Camden, Rockport, Rockland EMS merger topic is two different things at this stage. So what they're doing up there doesn't really affect what we're trying or what you're discussing on this end of it, but it's in the middle of everything. So it's a wait and see. As you can, I know John and Jeff can understand with the history of Knox County fire chiefs. The older you get, the less you want to make a change, and you're not going to push for that change. There are newer, younger chiefs in the county now inside the system that are discussing it and looking at it, but to get them to get going or get us all going and make this change by, say, July of next year, I don't see it happening. One of the brief discussions was that we'll put this plan together and whatever towns want to jump on board can jump on board. But like I said, it doesn't have much traction going on officially inside of any meeting. So, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions, discussion on the timeline or anything related to this subject? Okay. Moving on. Personnel matter, consider EMA stipend increase request. I'd like to put that off to the end of the meeting. I think Betty might join us, and we'll probably take that up at least initially in executive session. Discuss planning for paving the island road. As Walter, Jeff, Terry, I sent you guys a memo February 16th, or an email, I guess, in my capacity as uncompensated interim road commissioner. Well, I guess I'm not interim at this point, I'm simply uncompensated. But as I had briefly mentioned before, Haga, who got the Haga Construction that was awarded the contract to do the Island Road project, indicated to me that if we were going to pave the balance of the Island Road, well, actually, let me back up. Before they even were awarded that, I was putting some budget numbers together. And one of the numbers I obtained from Hager was what it would cost to, a budget estimate, to pave the Island Road, exempting the two sections that are going to be repaved as a result of the construction project. And the budget number he gave me based on today's, or actually 4 months ago or 3 months ago's asphalt prices, was $138,000. After they were awarded the Island Road project, he basically emailed me or called me up, I can't remember, and said that if they were, he would adjust that budget estimate if they were awarded the project by about, I don't know, $12,000, reduce it, because he would not have mobilization costs. But the key would be that he would have to pave it at the same time he was paving the two sections where the construction project is, which may happen, hopefully, in his mind, before July 1st. So you can see the dilemma we face here. In order to take advantage and hopefully grab those savings, which is fairly significant, we would have to basically approve the funding for this prior to July 1. Now, we have in the reserve fund enough money to cover all but about 17,000 of it. So we would have to transfer that from surplus if we wanted to make this happen. I suggested, I put in there, we could go to a special town meeting. I agree, Walter, you commented that that's not necessary, and I agree with you from a legal sense. We have both the authority to transfer from surplus based on last year's votes at town meeting, and also if we use reserve funds for their reserve purpose. But we have had a history in this town of going to town meeting to get sort of approval for these types of things. And I guess that's a decision we would have to talk about, whether we want to deviate from that or not. It is a fairly substantial sum of money. I guess, and then the other thing is, he told me that he anticipates, depending on what happens around the world, that asphalt could, prices could increase significantly this spring. He's already seeing that. And that if we wanted to lock in, we could lock in, sort of like you buy your home heating fuel, ahead of time, and then you own it. So that's another fly in the ointment. No, it's not a fly in the ointment. Another thing to think about. So, questions, comments?
Well, oil was creeping up to $100 a barrel today, so locking in is advisable.
he basically told me we could lock in, and if it didn't happen, as long as we gave him some advance notice, he could sell it out. He predicts that he could easily sell it elsewhere. I don't think he's going to guarantee that in writing, but
So we can lock it in without a fee?
that's what he told me. I mean, I can explore that more if you guys are interested, but
I definitely think we ought to, because with what's going on with the Russia, I'm convinced that we're gonna see some oil prices that go above 100.
yeah. Now, if the prices go down, we don't get the benefit.
I can't see how that's gonna happen.
Well, he said the same thing, but so, I mean, I'm willing to make a call to Performance Paving, who's really the only other player in this arena these days, and just kind of ask them what their per ton cost would be to pave Island Road at roughly so many tons, and just to kind of validate it. And I'd be happy to do that, but I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think we know we're going to do the project. I think we should move on this. And if I guess the other question is, do we feel we need to go to town meeting?
Didn't we budget for some paving in our 18-month
No.
budget?
No, we made a budget contribution. We made a contribution to the reserve for 50,000 or something like that. So do you want to move on this tonight? Do you want to sleep on it till our next meeting? What do you guys want to do? I guess as the road commissioner, I kind of urge you to move on this. I mean, Island Road's in rough shape. It's been on the list a long time. We put it off a couple of years now with this project. And given the world events, again, I'd be willing to call Performance just to validate, the per ton price. But I'm deferring to you guys because in this capacity, you're my supervisors.
Yeah, I think that now is better than later. I think there's all this uncertainty for later, and I just can't imagine that we're going to be better off waiting. I'm trying to understand what would need to be approved at a town meeting, though.
Well, I think we clearly can transfer from surplus. The question is, are we willing to take the money from the paving reserve for this without town meeting approval? I mean, town meeting's already approved putting it into the paving reserve, and we're using it for the purpose that it was put in there for. And clearly, we've heard from MMA many, many times that we don't actually need town meeting approval. It's just sort of been a tradition here, although we've deviated from it a few times.
Yeah, and I think that sooner is better than later. And although I would normally like to take this to a town meeting, I think right now with the COVID, town meetings still have to be in person. And depending on what we decide on number 6C, we may be another month out from being able to have a town meeting.
Okay. Well, I don't think we need a motion at this. Well, maybe we do. Is there a motion to instruct the road commissioner to further pursue this, and if he's so inclined to lock it in?
So move.
Second.
Further discussion.
What I want to know is how you managed to post the roads from Georgia.
I have some of them, but I've already got a plan.
Magic, John, just say magic.
Magic, right? Okay, further discussion. All those in favor? Jeff?
Jeff, I.
Walter?
Walter, I.
John, I'm going to abstain. Okay. Where are we at? Took my glasses off. Town report. We need to talk about a cover photo. I don't know, does anybody have any thoughts, or someone who might? Terry, I know Michelle has graced us in the past. She's pretty good at photography and has come up with some nice pictures. Could maybe a phone call go to her, and anybody else who's into photography or have any ideas about a cover? Maybe forward them to Terry, if anybody's so inclined. Jeff, Walter, any thoughts on that?
You might try Jan.
Jan Gaudio?
He does a lot of, yeah, he takes a lot of pictures.
Okay, okay. Terry, could you maybe send him an email or something, or?
And who's the drone guy that did all the pictures during the gig bridge building?
Well, I was wondering about Jeff.
And then there's Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you've got a place or a subject or something that you would like to have taken with aerial photography, just let me know and we can do that.
yeah. What type of, just so people know, what type of area are we talking about? Like a mile across, a half a mile across, 100 feet across?
Yeah, it's as you would imagine, the higher we go, we can go up to 400 feet. And so that'll give you a very, very wide area, probably 2 miles across, because we can actually get the whole airport. But if you want something finer, the lower we go, we can get it right down to I've done my dad's grave site with one. So we can make it as small or as large an area as you want.
Well, if anybody has any thoughts on something, I thought that'd be interesting, and we could kind of chronicle it right in the back cover, and 100 years from now, people would say, oh, that's the first drone picture that. Okay, so any ideas, get them to Terry. And any pictures or drone pictures or areas to photograph with drones or anything. All right. And the dedication, if anybody has a thought, we generally do this so the person who is dedicated to is not aware of it. So if anybody has a thought, if you could email me directly or Terry. We also, like many towns, we do it, a lot of towns only do it to people who have passed away. We kind of got away from that. Thinking that it's nice to honor people when they actually know they're being honored. So, so last year was Chuck Hartman. I was thinking Jerry, but then I remembered we did him years ago. So when he first stopped plowing and stuff. So anybody have any thoughts on that? Please email them to Terry. And when I say anybody, I mean anybody, not just Jeff or Walter. And it doesn't have to be someone, in my opinion, who was, was involved with, in a formal sense, the town, as long as it was the community, so to speak. At least that's how I feel about it. But, okay. COVID protocols. From what I asked this to be on the agenda. From what I've read in the papers down here, it sounds like things are somewhat getting back to normal in Maine. The case rates, I guess, are high, but I've read that's because of a lot of the backlead testing that's getting cleaned up. But so I didn't know whether folks wanted to revisit this now, or put it off or revisit it, or I guess I'd like to hear Walter and Jeff's thoughts.
Yeah, I have been tracking this for a while now. Probably not last week, but the week before was pretty close to our peak. by almost all the measures. Right now, we have dropped significantly over the last 2 weeks in almost every measure that you can take, including the number of cases, but more importantly, the number of hospitalizations, the number of deaths, which has just dropped off to almost nothing. And in Knox County, it's very low. The problem is we're only looking at a very short amount of time. We peaked probably later than any other state in the nation. Almost all the states except for 2 have already seen this decline for the last month. Tennessee is one of them that it still is very high, still having issues, and we were plateaued until the last 2 weeks, and the bottom just fell out of it. The problem is that it's only 2 weeks worth of positive data, and the state of Maine CDC is still recommending that you wear a mask if you're inside, in a public setting inside. So although I would love for us to get back to normal, I think that putting these restrictions is just bad for everything that we do. I would like to give it another couple of weeks. So our next meeting, I would like to have this on the agenda and take a look at it, because if it holds true, if the numbers stay the way they are right now, then I would have no problem at all about us going back to normal. But again, 2 weeks is just not enough data points for me to recommend it now.
Walter, any thoughts?
Well, Knox County had the highest number of new cases ever last week. But that's part of this backlog of testing being flushed out. So I think that we should wait until the data collection gets normalized. And so I agree with Jeff. Let's hold off until that bubble gets flushed through the system and we see what the actual situation is.
Okay, I certainly can support that. We don't need to take any action on this other than to ask Terry to put it on the agenda at the next meeting. And we'll move on. Accept Kearney Nagel's resignation from the planning board. Is there a motion?
I move to accept with regret Kearney Nagel's resignation from the planning board.
I also second with regret.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Jeff?
Jeff, I.
Walter?
Aye.
John, aye. Can someone draft a letter to send her? I mean, she wasn't on very long, but I think that obviously with her situation, it would just be nice for us to send her a letter. Someone willing to draft that? Jeff, do you know her fairly well, or?
I know her, but not very well.
Yeah, okay. Walter, could I impose on you?
Sure. I only know her because I ran against her.
Oh, that's right. Well, why don't I volunteer? Okay. All right. Discussion regarding the road posting ordinance. This came to me, my attention as the uncompensated road commissioner. That I got a couple of letters from a septic hauler, and I can't remember who else, asking for exemption permits for road postings, which are coming up fairly shortly. And I tried to get a hold of Jerry and I couldn't. I just called him several times. So I ended up calling Pete Coughlin at the local road center. He said, well, you should have an ordinance. And I said, well, I believe we do. I've been told that we did. and so I asked Terry to look for it, and she couldn't find it anywhere. She looked in 3 or 4 different places, and I talked to Jerry. I finally did go hold of him. And he said that yes, he thought there was, but he didn't have a copy of it. So that's actually when I talked to Pete, I got my order of screwed up a little. But he suggested that we enact an ordinance, and that's something the select board can do. And we do it fairly quickly, because without an ordinance that we could actually carry into court that's kind of certified by the town clerk, if we actually had to take someone to court, we really wouldn't have any teeth. And he sent me a draft model ordinance. It does require a public hearing, 7 days notice. He also suggested that at the end of that, we put a sentence that say, "And this ordinance hereby supersedes and replaces any previously enacted ordinances," in case one happens to surface later. And I talked with a couple of other folks who, and my opinion is we should simply go ahead and post the roads as we always have. Most people will obey that without chasing them to court. And then try to enact this ordinance. I don't know if you had a chance to see the model ordinance. Terry did substitute the names. I think we should take Pete's suggestion and put that line at the end of it. I also think that we should and I'll be happy to work this up, but under 5, I think we should add perishable products to cover bait and lobsters and stuff coming off the island. And typically Jerry said that we have exempted perishable products, although it's not actually spelled out in this model ordinance. So the only question I have is 5 allows trucks up to 32 axle trucks up to 34 gross registered weight that are carrying those items that are listed in A through J, which are solid waste, groceries, bulk feed, sewage, medical gases, so on and so forth. But and that's where I would I think we should include perishable seafood products. But I think we might want to add a section 6 that allows for 5 axle vehicles, tractor trailers, up to 80,000 pounds that are carrying perishable seafood products as well, because we have a few trucks that come off the island that meet that. And the 80,000 pounds, although it sounds like a lot, if you spread it over 5 axles as opposed to 2 axles, it's a whole different kettle of fish in terms of the actual pressure on the road. But I would like a chance to talk to Travis about that. I believe they're the only ones with a tractor trailer on the island. And if they could not use it during the posting period, I think that would be preferable, personally. So those are my thoughts on this. So I would urge us to polish this up as quickly as possible, schedule a special meeting, post it for 7 days, schedule a special meeting, and perhaps even the March 8th, one of the budget meetings we're having on March 8th or 9th, and get this ordinance in place. In the interim, the roads will be posted just as we have for years. And again, most people will comply with that. Jerry said he can't remember the last time he had to really, chase somebody. So comments, questions?
Yeah, just for, I'm looking at Maureen and Sandra, who are new or newish. You might want to cover the fact that this does not, we have to have a hearing, but we don't have to go to town meeting, even though it's an ordinance, because it falls within the select board's authority over roads, right?
Correct.
And parking.
There are several, like general assistance is a selectman ordinance, parking, or no parking is a selectman ordinance, and this is too under state law. Yeah, and there's a couple others too. Thank you, Walter.
John,
Terry?
Jimmy called Bill this morning.
Yeah.
And said St. George posted theirs yesterday. Thomaston was posting theirs today. And Phil told them that you had said if the other towns post that we should post.
Yeah,
So Jerry did the posting boards and Carolyn brought them to the town office and Stevie Jarrett posted them.
okay, great. Yeah, and
Yep.
again, and Jerry believes we do have an ordinance. The problem is we can't find one. So that's great. That's great. Yeah, and so actually what was supposed to happen happened. Okay, so I'm not hearing a lot, so I guess we'll shoot for incorporating this in the public hearing into the March 8th or 9th meeting or whatever it is. We're having those budget meetings in the morning. Is that agreeable?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think the sooner the better.
Yeah. Okay, well, we gotta clean it up. I gotta talk to Travis. We need a 7-day notice, so I think, probably one of those days will work out fine. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Personnel matter, executive session, correspondence. We had a letter from the Bureau of Parks and Lands regarding a pier modification at the I can't think of the name of it. What's the name?
Landing?
Huh?
Merchants
Well,
Landing.
it's Merchants Landing Condominium Association, right? Or it's not Don and Sally Merchant anymore, but anyways. And that's been posted. We don't really need to do anything there. That's not our affairs. Other than, and if anybody wants to comment on it, they can. Okay. Was there any other correspondence? We did get that another letter that wasn't actually sent to us. It was sent to the code officer from Mailer regarding the noise complaint at the Wilson property. Terry, you said you were going to speak to Dan about that again, or make sure he had that.
He went there this morning, twice, he said, and no one answered the door. He did write a letter to Travis and he sent it certified today.
Okay, thank you. Walter?
The harbor master issue that was brought up last time, is that gone away?
I think we were just waiting to see if anybody had any input or any desires, and so far I've talked to 3 different people who are still not interested in it.
I talked to 2, and one brought this up with Bill Atwood, in partnership with Bill Atwood many years ago, and it didn't go anywhere. And the other said, these are both fishermen, by the way, probably a good idea, and isn't it a state law, and aren't we in violation? So I didn't know the answer to that.
No, we're not in violation, although like
Although we're
I
the
said,
only
when we
town
looked
in-
into this a few years ago,
Okay,
that we were the only town that I could find in the state of Maine that didn't have a harbor master.
On the a coastal town.
No, even
No?
interior towns.
No.
Interior towns have harbor masters. So no, the way the state law reads is if somebody comes to us and wants us to delineate moorings for them, we are then required to appoint a harbor master. So far, nobody's done that.
Okay,
The fishermen I talked to were not interested.
and I haven't talked to anybody. All right. Well, we'll see if that percolates forward. We have warrants, payroll warrants. I guess you guys will have to sign them up there. Just briefly, on scheduling meetings, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, We have, sorry. We have March 8th as a regular meeting. Is that correct? Everybody have that? And then we talked about having some budget meetings early in the morning on the 9th and 10th. There was some talk about, Walter, you said you couldn't do 8, but you could do 8:30?
Yes, but she scheduled it for 9:30.
Well, that's why I want to make sure we're all in the
That was
same.
a typo then.
What's that?
I didn't mean for 9:30. I can't find my paper.
No, the one I've got says 8:30.
Okay.
When I got said 9:30. I'll change it.
All right, so we're doing 8:30 on the 9th and the 10th to review some of the larger budgets, just the Board of Selectmen, correct? It is a public meeting, we have to post it. Okay, and then we have a meeting scheduled on the 23rd. We moved that to accommodate me. Is there any possible way we could move that to the 29th, the following Tuesday? I'm planning on arriving, if all goes well, on the 23rd, and it's gonna be kind of a crazy day.
That works for me.
Walter, does that work for you?
It does at the moment, but I'm okay right now.
Okay, so can we go ahead and move it, or I'm not sure what that means?
Let me consult with the commanding officer after this
Okay.
meeting, and I'll let you know.
Okay, if not, would the 24th work for people, or is that a conflict with somebody, something?
good.
With me, it's a conflict with the trash board.
Okay, okay. Well, let's see if the 28th, the 29th will work. Walter, you'll get back to Terry?
I will do that.
Okay, great, thanks. And then we'll leave it from there. Okay, is there a motion to go into executives? I think we're done. Are we, anything else?
I have a question. We kind of tentatively scheduled the 28th and 29th for the board to look at the whole budget before you meet with the select board, so it goes smooth as silk. But that really doesn't give us much time to review that and then meet with them on the 31st. But it sounds like you're going to be traveling the week before.
Yeah, why don't we make that decision on the 10th
Okay,
on what we need to do? Is that agreeable to folks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't do the 29th. Or
You
the
can't.
28th, rather. Monday, the 28th, I cannot do.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe,
In the evening, I can do it in the day.
okay, well, yeah, so I think you're right though, Terry. That puts you under the gun. You're muted again.
it would be awfully hard to get it ready by the 31st.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
why don't we look at it, maybe things will go so smoothly on the 9th and 10th, you'll be just like, this is absolutely wonderful. It's gonna be a great year, we're just gonna zip right through.
Oh, yeah, what an optimist. Okay. All right, so we'll play that by ear. Remember to bring that up though on the 10th, so, because I didn't have the 28th on my calendar anyway, so. Anything else before we entertain a motion to go into executive session? Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session, discuss a personnel matter pursuant to whatever it is?
4056A.
Thank you.
The-
Is there a second?
Second,
Further discussion? Jeff,
Jeff, I.
Walter,
Aye.
John, I. Thank you, everybody. Terry, you're staying.